Good evening. I'd like to call to order the July 10th, 2025 Planning Board meeting for the City of Nashua. First, Madam Secretary, can we please get a roll call?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mayor Donchis, Mike Peterson, Bob Bollinger,
Here.
Adam Varley,
Here.
Maggie Harper, here. Dan Hudson,
Here.
Scott Leclaire, Larry Hirsch,
Here.
Cameron Green,
Here.
and Alderman Clee.
Here.
All right. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Next item on the agenda, approval of minutes from our June 5th, 2025 meeting. Has any member of the board had an opportunity to review the minutes and is willing to make a motion for their acceptance or acceptance with amendment? Alderman Clee?
I'll make that motion.
All right. Motion by Alderman Clee. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Green. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions? One abstention. Mr. Hudson. All right. Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda, communications. Scott, anything additional come in once the packets were published?
On your desk tonight, you will have the only other correspondence from Mr. Champagne. Otherwise, the other information's already been uploaded and you've been able to review it.
All right. Very good. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, report of chair, committee, and liaison. Ms. Harper?
Nothing to report, Mr. Chair.
All right. I just have one quick one, just for the benefit of the board. The subcommittee of the Planning Board, the Capital Improvement Committee, there were some supplemental projects that were added after the budget was passed. Per charter and per our duty, we were required to rank them, provide a score, I should say. Late last week, that exercise was performed. So the capital improvement plan has been amended with the additional, I believe it was 4 projects that were added post-passing of the budget. So just for informational purposes only, if anyone has any questions or wants to go into greater detail, I'm sure Sam would be more than happy to give you an overview. So that was all I had. All right. Before we get into our regular cases, I do just want to go over the planning board procedure. The procedure of the meeting is as follows. After the legal notice of each conditional, special use permit, site plan, or subdivision plan is read by the chair, the board will determine if that application is complete and ready for the board to take jurisdiction. The public hearing will begin, at which time the applicant or representatives will be given time to present an overview and description of their project. The applicant shall speak to whether or not they agree with recommended staff stipulations. The board will then have an opportunity to ask questions of the applicant or staff. The chair will then ask for testimony from the audience. First, anyone wishing to speak in opposition or with concern to the plan may speak. Please come forward to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. This would be the time to ask questions you may have regarding the plan. Next, public testimony will come from anyone wishing to speak in favor of the plan. The applicant will then be allowed a rebuttal period, at which time they shall speak to any issues or concerns raised by prior public testimony. After this is completed, the public hearing will end and the board will resume the public meeting, at which time the board will deliberate and vote on the application before us. The board asks that both sides keep their remarks to the subject at hand and try not to repeat what has already been said. Above all, the board wants to be fair to everyone and make the best possible decision based on the testimony provided and all applicable approval criteria. Thank you for your interest and courteous attention, and if I could kindly ask you to please silence your cell phones or any other electronic devices at this time. All right. First item on the agenda, new business subdivision plan. Just for the benefit of the audience, if anyone was here to testify to the property at 55A Middle Dunstable Road, that has been postponed to the August 7th meeting, so that will not be heard this evening. Next item on the agenda, there's new business, also under new business subdivision plan, there is case 825-0100, property located at 103 Temple Street. Also at the same address under new business site plan, case 825-0099, property located at 103 Temple Street. If it's the board's indulgence, I think we could hear both of those at the same time. That said, is any member of the board prepared to make a motion regarding completeness of those applications and whether or not the board should accept jurisdiction over those cases? Mr. Varley?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would make a motion as to new business subdivision plan A25-0100 and new business site plan A25-0099, that both applications are complete and ready for the board to accept jurisdiction.
All right, thank you. Motion by Mr. Varley. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Hirsch. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, board has jurisdiction over both cases. If there's a representative for the applicant, please come right on up.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Jim Petropoulos. I'm a professional engineer with Hayner Swanson, Inc., doing business at 3 Congress Street in Nashua, New Hampshire, tonight representing the developer of Property Possible, Inc. Jason Newboyer is with us this evening. Jason is an architect with Market Square Architects and is just identified, and I appreciate, Mr. Chairman, taking the 2 cases at the same time. We're really here seeking 2 actions by the board, related to property at 103 Temple Street. This is a project that I think most board members are probably familiar with. They've seen it before in 2023 and 24. Our first application this evening is simply for the plan of land, seeking a 1-year extension of the subdivision plan approval. And then our second request is also for an extension of the site plan, but also for modifications to some of the architectural elements of that site plan, and I'll go through that. Since the receipt of our approvals, you may be wondering, well, what's the status of the project? Our client is really focused on obtaining financing, performing environmental remediation, and also finding the right business partner really to construct this project. Let me start with just a quick brief overview and a recap of things. The property is 103 Temple Street, your map 37 lot 6. It's a 5.8 acre site located in the general industrial zone, but also the transit overlay district. The site is pretty much abutted by public streets, Temple to the north, Spruce Street to the west, Scripture and Worcester to the east, and there's a number of commercial uses located in the general surrounding area, as well as residences just to the east. The existing site is developed and has been for a long time. If you've read the staff report, Scott did a pretty thorough job diving into the history here of these properties. But there's about 120,000 square feet of buildings, a combination of 1- and 3-story buildings. Historically, it's had many uses, but primarily the J.F. McElwain shoe manufacturing company dating back to the 1920s. Current uses in the buildings today are contractor's yard, a kitchen store, tire repair sales, a church, shelter, and a bingo hall. The site's got a lot of frontage, about 2,000 feet on public ways, about 8 different curb cuts, various loading and parking areas, and overall it's pretty flat, I would characterize as an urban site. Back in 23 and 24, a subdivision plan was approved to create 3 lots, and the purpose of doing so was primarily for financing, so these buildings could be financed on an individual property. That subdivision plan was permitted, but it is yet to be perfected and put on record. The site plan that was permitted was proposed to really demolish the existing buildings on the site and redevelop the property with 3 multifamily buildings totaling 367 units, along with various site improvements. 450 parking spaces, there's a 150 space garage level, about 300 spaces on the surface. Similar type loading areas for box trucks and delivery vehicles. And if you look at the site plan, it shows really access onto Temple, Spruce, and onto Howard to the south. And of course, the redevelopment of the site includes a number of site improvements, curbing, sidewalk signage, landscaping, lighting, and utility services, and stormwater management. What's before you this evening, as I said, to request, simply to extend the subdivision plan for 1 year, the subdivision plan approval. There were no changes made to that plan. Secondly, with regard to the site plan, we're really seeking 2 changes. The first, and Scott, if you don't mind, if you could call up maybe the site plan, that's the land plan. Yeah, okay, that works. The first change is to add 1 story, to go from a 5-story building to a 6-story, and 18 units to Building C. It was previously a 5-story, 72-unit building. And if I'm correct, Scott, Building C is that one located near Howard Street, right down in the lower right-hand corner of the site. This would up the unit count from 367 to 385. The second change, and Scott, maybe if you go to those architecturals, is, as I mentioned, adding 1 floor to 1 building, but it's also to make several architectural changes to buildings B and C, the 2 to the south. And the reason for those changes is, as I understand it, Building A is intended to be earmarked for a certain price point. I guess it's more affordable units within Building A. That's the building you see in the background of the screen right now. And that the other 2 buildings will be market rate buildings. And I think the architect and the developer wanted to make a couple little differentiation elements that I will quickly walk through. And if we have detailed questions, as I said, Jason's really here to answer questions. The plan proposes, again, traditional kind of New England architecture, New England color palette. We're going to introduce brick, primarily because a lot of the buildings currently are brick. And I think the previous approval had some stone cladding. And this conversion to brick is one of the architectural changes, as well as some siding. You see the gray and white combination colors there. I think, Sam, that's slightly different than what was previously permitted, as well as classic cornice and trim designs, highlighting some of the windows and the door features. The other main architectural change is the roof design. Buildings B and C are now intended to have a flat roof. Building A will stay as a pitched roof. And there's a couple of reasons for that. They are really to better control stormwater on the roof, allow the mechanical units for the building to be up on top of the roof. And I would like to mention that while we're adding a story to Building C, we've effectively reduced the height. In other words, the previous 6-story building with the peaked roof went up to 79 feet. With the flat roof, it's only at 70 feet. So there's actually a reduction in height, even though we're adding a story. Just wrapping up here, because we're in the transit-oriented district, we need a site suitability report. We've modified that, we've updated that to include the change of the unit counts. It still meets the criteria, in our opinion, of the National Land Use Code. And most importantly, the report summarizes that the project remains in line with the objectives, not only of the 2021 master plan, but the 2020 housing study, the 2017 riverfront master plan, and the East Hollis Street planned area. So lastly, both applications, Mr. Chair, we believe are in accordance with your requirements. The conditions as set forth in the staff reports are acceptable to our client. There's a little bit of drainage work that needs to be done on the site plan with engineering staff. I'm confident we can get there. But by and large, those conditions as outlined are acceptable. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Petropoulos. Questions from the board? Mr. Varley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Jim, just a couple of questions. The first is, I just wanted to confirm on the parking. I think the staff report refers to a reduction in spaces, but I think what we mean is just relative to the number of additional, we're not talking about a reduction in the absolute number of spaces,
A
right?
reduction in the ratio.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the number of spaces have not changed, correct.
Okay, that's what I thought. And then just to follow up on the differentiation between the architectural style on building A versus buildings B and C, just to, I don't know how to phrase this diplomatically, but I'm assuming that the applicant's intent here is not, this is not related to like the quality of the architectural design or the you know, the sort of building design. This is purely for, you know, the reasons you described, sort of to differentiate the buildings, and that's the perspective.
It is, it's a, you know, it's a large project
Yeah.
with some tall buildings in an urban area. And I think upon reflection, they said, you know, let's try to make things a little bit different within the project. I think we've seen some urban multifamily buildings come up, and all the buildings are exactly the same.
Right.
And I think that led them to say maybe we could try to do things a little bit different. So if you notice the colored perspective that we're looking at, you're seeing obviously a difference in roofs. Color palette consistent, you know, somewhat consistent, but probably slight different, and then different brick treatments as well. So subtle changes, but enough to make them different within the project, right? And that's really the reason.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Green,
Just
please.
one clarification, so similar materials for both buildings, essentially still
Correct.
brick and brick in the slate that you mentioned as well?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions from the board? I have one actually for Mr. Hudson. Nothing specific, but just in terms of some of the supplemental engineering comments, was there anything in particular that stuck out, or do you view that as mostly sort of cleanup items?
So that's a fair question. The comments are largely the same, carried forward from the previous submission, but we did receive a new submission. There's one new comment, as Mr. Petropoulos referenced, that was related to stormwater. They're proposing a stormwater, it appears that they're proposing a connection of roof drainage stormwater into the Temple Street drainage system, which is a combined system. That's something that we want to further discuss. The manhole they propose to connect to is a 1899-ish brick manhole probably, and we know there's some problems in that system, so we want to further discuss those things. I think the stormwater report speaks to the rest of the drainage going into the infiltration system at like a 100-year storm level. That's excellent, but perhaps this roof drainage could be routed into a similar infiltration system. Maybe the whole system only then meets like a 50-year or something, I don't know, but that's still probably adequate for this type of development. So we just want to talk through a couple things like that. That's the new comment we added. The other comments I would characterize generally as, you know, plan cleanup, adding some notes, things like that. I don't think, there's some site distance questions as well that we need to resolve, but nothing, as I said, these are carry forward comments. We were in support of conditional approval previously, so there's nothing that's added that would lead me to a different recommendation at this time.
So, just paraphrasing, you think there's a solution with the drainage?
I think there is.
I didn't intend to you know, discuss the specifics necessarily tonight, but you feel there is a solution that can be attained?
I'm confident we can come to some agreement.
Okay.
We'll work with the applicant to see what's feasible and go from there. But yeah, nothing that I think we would have to come back to the board to resolve.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Hudson. I
Sure.
appreciate it. All right. Other questions from the board at this time? All right. Very good. Jim, thank you for your presentation. At this time, we are going to open it up to the public. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition or with concern to this application? Certainly, I would just ask you to come up to the podium one at a time, and please just identify yourself, name and address for the record, please. And if you need to adjust the microphone, go right ahead to do so, just so they can pick it up on the television. So,
Louis Antonucci, 22 Howard Street. There's two questions that I have. The first is the architectural drawings. I have never seen any for Building C. Are we is Building C still in play? Or,
Well, here, if you could speak to the board, and then the applicant is going to have a chance to respond to you
Okay.
directly, so.
okay. One, just this, is the Building C going to be the same as the other two, A and B?
I won't.
That's the question
That's
to
the
the board.
question, and I'm sure Mr. Petropoulos is taking good notes.
Yep,
Again, he'll have
I'm
an
sure he
opportunity
is.
to respond
With
and
those
answer that.
lovely drawings. The other thing is, there was some additional, they're talking about parking on Howard Street. Am I correct about and I think it was at the last, an earlier meeting at the zoning board, there was some discussion about parking, and someone stated that additional parking can be found on Howard Street, which is a very narrow street to begin with, once you get to the curve. And it's a no parking zone, by the way. The next is along the same lines. Right now, Scripture is one way from Temple down to Worcester, and I forget the name of the street, but it's the one exiting. There's a curve there that a pickup truck, or not even a pickup truck, can make if you're coming off Howard. You make a right and then a quick left. I was wondering if there's going to be anything done at that intersection with the increased traffic, because delivery trucks can't even make it out that street. And my last question is, I noticed, from reading, it mentions that it's going to be a low-income housing units in there. And are they all going to be in one building, or is it going to be dispersed throughout? And I'm just concerned that if they're saying, you know, I would like to see it dispersed throughout, but if they have 72 apartments in one building and they have 72 low-income places, that's Building C, are we talking about just this, you know, having a building with just low income housing? And that's about it. It's just that the sites look good, but those are my three concerns: parking, the traffic flow, and disbursement.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Oh. Hi, good evening.
I'm Reverend Sally Newhall. I live at 33 Digital Drive, Unit 308, here in Nashua. I'm also a member of the Greater Nashua Housing Justice Group. We've come before you before. We'll probably keep doing that. The Temple Street project has come to our attention only recently, so I have spent the day reading designs and trying to figure out if I can understand it, and I don't. So I'm going to bring you some of the concerns that have come to me so far as I've read it, and hope that the Temple Street folks can give me answers, because I'd love to have that. We're really excited to see more working house price housing go into Nashua. As you all know, we really need it. And it's not even low income, it's just working folks' income, so that our incoming police officers and teachers can find places to live. But I do have a concern. You talked about how Building A will be where all the lower cost apartments will be, and that raises concerns, which some of you raised, about quality difference between the buildings, but also labels that get attached to, you know, that's where the poor folks live and that kind of thing. And that's a concern I have, so issues of quality and just labeling buildings that way. As I looked at the designs, I realized that, again, I did not see a design for Building C, which is the building you want to add a third story to. And I couldn't figure out, and because I couldn't see it, I kept looking to figure out what you were going to do. So I see from the drawings and from the pictures, there are 5 stories with regular windows, and then at the ground floor, I'm not sure what is at the ground floor, and I guess I would like some explanation of that. Is it gonna be intermixed stuff with retail on the ground floor, or what is that ground store stuff for? Because I thought maybe you were adding the third floor of rental units down there for apartments. I wasn't sure. I was hoping you could explain that. I was concerned about the flat roofs. I think the flat roofs give more of a business impression than the peaked roofs do. They give more of a residential impression. So I'm just concerned about the look within the community and how the buildings are just interpreted as people look at them. It's just an opinion. I was concerned, there seems to be beautifully landscaped from your pictures, property right around the edge of the building between the property and the sidewalks. But the only green space that I saw for all of these couple hundred people to get out and do anything is the playground. I just wish there was more space where if somebody on the second floor wanted to just go out, and they don't have balconies, just want to go out and sit in a lawn chair for an hour and talk with friends, there's no place to do that. I would really like to see more green space in this whole development. We talk about green space in other parts of the city, but I don't see any consideration of that here. I did it. Those were all my points. And it was a lot, but I hope that, and I'm not sure where in the process all of these are appropriate to bring them up, so I hope tonight was the right place to bring it. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other members of the public that would like to speak in opposition or with concern? Certainly.
Yeah, the owner, I live on 55 Worcester Street, 57 and 59. I own those buildings.
And I'm sorry, just your name for the record again?
Dan LaPointe.
Thank you. Thank you.
So these are my concerns. First of all, I'm against adding another floor to begin with. You guys keep promoting, we need more, housing for the workforce, right? You need affordable housing, okay? And right now we're deporting people, okay? So we're gonna have a glut of apartments to begin with. And you guys keep saying this is gonna provide tax relief, right? But my taxes keep going up and up. You guys have already built buildings on both sides of the bridge going into Hudson, okay? Down Canal Street, right? Okay, you've added buildings right next to Pennachuck Water, and yet my taxes are still going through the roof, okay? And you guys are talking about affordable housing. You're destroying mill buildings, okay? And you're not replacing us with jobs. All we have, okay, is the stores. You get the Pheasant Lane Mall. These aren't quality jobs. Okay, you want to create things that are affordable? Well, you don't bring up jobs that paying people a lot of money. Okay, and this is all, I know what's going on here. This is part of central planning. This is part of smart cities and welcoming cities, which is Agenda 2030. This is what you're ushering in. And a lot of these investors, okay, are hooked donors to the mayor. That's just the truth, okay? I know Harvey Construction, okay, who got a lot of the contracts in the city were donors to the mayor, okay? So who are you guys working for at the end of the day? Are you working for the constituents, or are you working for the donors? So think about that. Think of what you're doing to this city, okay? Because I don't see improvements, okay? Nashville was great in the 80s and 90s, and we've gone downhill since, okay? Just take a ride around what you're doing. I know what you're doing. This is 15-minute cities. That's what it is.
Thank you. Are there any members of...
Even this guy has told me...
Sir, if you have more to say, I'll give you a chance, but no back and forth, please, in the audience. Thank you. Any other members of the audience that wish to speak in opposition or with concern? Good evening.
My name is Elizabeth Ferreira. I live on Broad Street in Nashua, but I'm here on behalf of a few people who couldn't be here who had concerns in the neighborhood. And the primary concerns were, increased traffic that this would be bringing, but also the addition of the extra story was a little bit concerning for people who had more residential housing nearby. They were worried about how that would impact them with, you know, maybe possibly blocking out sun. So that was a primary concern. We know that there's a potential, obviously, to improve the area from what we have right now, but there's just a concern, is it just a little bit too big, a little bit too much in that area? So we would ask you to maybe consider leaving things as they are already. Thank you.
Thank you. Others wishing to speak in opposition or with concern? All right, seeing none, any members of the audience that wish to speak? I would ask you not to repeat what you've already stated.
New Hampshire's number 9 for most vacancies of single families. Keep that in mind. So this whole shortage you guys are talking about, it doesn't exist.
Can you please say your name and address for the
I
record?
already did.
There's a new-
When you re-speak, just
Yeah,
for the record for
59
folks.
Worcester Street, Dan LaPointe, all right?
Okay. Yep.
Just, Mr. Chairman, just,
Please, Mr. Varley.
yeah,
go ahead.
just for the record.
Before you go,
and,
Jim.
Yeah, Jim will respond to those points, but just to address, you know, one item that Mr. LaPointe raised, just because I don't want to leave it completely unsaid. I just want to clarify the sort of nature and role of this board, which is, you know, with the exception of Mr. Hudson, who's, you know, representing the engineering department, none of the folks sitting here tonight are employees of the city. We don't work for the mayor. We are an independent board. We are tasked with reviewing plans that come before us that are proposed by developers. We are not deciding what comes before this board. It is not our task to you know, engage in, you know, decision-making about what developers decide to present to this board. So I just wanted to clarify that. We are making determinations based on the code of the city of Nashua. That's our role here, and we don't work for the city or the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Varley. I'll take it just one step further. We don't make policy here. We're not elected officials. We're not compensated. Well, Alderman Clea is, the aldermen are allowed a vote on the board. My apologies, I forgot you were there. But other than that, five of the board members that you see, or 6 rather, we're not decision makers. We're given the opportunity to try to determine whether or not any application brought before us complies with all applicable city ordinances. So I won't belabor the point, but thank you, Mr. Varley, for your comments on that as well.
And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Other than that, I don't want to skip procedure, but was there anybody in the audience that wanted to speak in favor of this application? Okay. Seeing none, Jim, come right up and.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record, my name is Jim Petropoulos. So I took some good notes. I'll do my best to answer the questions that were asked. Mr. Antonucci, yes, Building C is part of it. There's 3 buildings to this overall project. Again, the project is fully permitted. We're here just for a couple select changes, but even though that graphic I presented from only showed 2 of the 3 buildings, all 3 buildings, you can see Building C on the right, and that building hasn't changed from its original approval. Mr. Antonucci brought up parking on Howard Street. I just quickly checked the plan. We're not proposing any parking on Howard Street, and I trust his testimony that it's not allowed anyway. So if it's not allowed, it's not likely that any of these residents will be encouraged to park there. If they are, they're in violation. Scripture Street, Scott, if you could go to a site plan, please. So Scripture and Worcester are on the east side of the site, and he's correct, they're very narrow kind of streets. The property does enjoy access to those streets today, but we're proposing to cut those accesses off. There will be a gated access there, but there will be no full access from this project using those side streets. You're correct, they're just not built for that. And then you had asked about the term affordable. I like the Reverend's term, workforce type income. It is located in Building A, and the entire Building A will be dedicated towards that use. So that was Mr. Antonucci. With regard to the Reverend's comments, same quality on all three buildings. Building C, again, as I said to Mr. Antonucci, that is part of the project, absolutely. Is there a stigma of having one building with the workforce or the affordable? I don't know that. I can't answer that question. I certainly hope not. Again, if you look at the consistency of the design of the building, of the site, everything is created equal. The Reverend asked about residences or commercial space on the first or second floor of some of these buildings. No, it's all residential at the lower levels, no commercial space within here. And then she opined about her preferences for roof and for green space. And we certainly respect her opinions. Mr. LaPointe spoke passionately. I appreciate his comments. One of the great things about this process is everybody gets to come and has a mic and is able to speak. Unfortunately, he really didn't ask any detailed questions that I could answer. As you said, mostly policy things having to do with the future development of the city. And then lastly, Ms. Ferrara spoke of her concerns to traffic, which, obviously it's a different type of traffic than the historical use here, with the residents, probably more traffic over a 24-hour period, but maybe less during some of the AM and the PM peaks. And then the height that she spoke of, again, it's kind of a unique element where we come in before you and ask for an extra floor, but the actual reduction, the height of the building gets reduced, so it isn't as if it's going up. But we appreciate her comments relative to sun angles and things. Of course, the sun is generally in the southern part of the sky, east to west. So I would think the fact that we're not going any higher with Building C is a point in our favor. So hopefully I've addressed those comments, Mr. Chair. I didn't know if I left anything out. Was there anything you had on your list that you need for us to address?
No, Jim, thank you. I think you hit on all the salient points that were raised. I'll give the board one more opportunity. Any follow-up questions? Certainly. Alderman Clee.
Thank you. In reference to the building height, I understand that you're saying with the pitched roof, you had, what was it, 79, and now you have 72 because it's flat. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Something around there at least. But when it was the pitched roof,
The
for
height
lack
was
of
to
a better,
the
for
height
lack of
was
a
to
better.
the peak of the roof.
The peak of the roof.
Yeah.
Right, it was to the peak of the roof. But what I'm thinking of is when the sun comes over and so on, it's still gonna have a different angle. So when you're bringing it up that much higher,
Yeah.
do you still have the same trajectory of the sun? I know you're not an expert on something
Yeah,
like that,
I
but,
don't think a sun
so I
studies-
understand where
It-
I understand where they're coming from, and I'm just asking
Yeah.
that when I look at a pitch of a roof versus a square
Yeah.
building.
It is common in the architectural world to have sun studies done, actually. I
Yeah.
can't speak if there was one done here, but.
I didn't notice one
In
done.
terms of overall height, my intuition is that the taller the building is going to cast more shade than the less small building. Yeah. That would be just my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Harper? Oh, I'm sorry, Jim, we got.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, I was slow. I just on the whole, affordable housing all being in one building, if all of the buildings have all the same finishes, then, why aren't they being dispersed throughout the three buildings?
Okay. Can I consult with my client and try to get
Yes.
you an answer?
Certainly.
Michael LaFavor is our client, and he's the developer, and informs me that, this is a project that has obtained New Hampshire housing financing as well as some tax credits for this development. And Michael indicated to me that it's their preference to consolidate into a building rather than to disperse over 3 buildings. I know that might sound a little contrary to your position, but apparently that's a directive and was part of the overall financing application and process through that system.
Through Hayden?
Yep.
Okay.
Any additional questions for Mr. Petropoulos? Okay. Jim, thank you. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing at this time. We'll continue our public meeting, though. Obviously, as the board knows, we previously approved both the subdivision plan and the site plan. I wouldn't say I have an architectural eye, so I can't honestly tell you how different one is than the other. It's not to defend it, but I know there were some questions from the board about at least the consistency of building material and finishes, so I think that addressed some of my initial, perhaps, concerns that I had coming in. I personally don't see the additional floor as being onerous. You know, as far as I understand, there was no relief required for that. They're still within what they're permitted by right. So I guess kind of a long-winded way of saying I don't see this as substantially different than what was previously approved, but obviously I'd love to hear from other members of the board to get your thoughts on the matter. Alderman Clee, please.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I guess the 79 feet versus the 72 feet, I'm glad to see that it's lower, but I still have concerns that it's more of a box versus a pointed roof. I do think that it will have a different type thing. I didn't see any sun study or anything else like that in it, and I know it wasn't a requirement, so I'm not pushing that point. But I do have some concerns about that extra floor. I also do understand that the applicant representative, I believe when he spoke originally, and please correct me if I'm wrong, made comment about that they were looking at a variety of different fundings, and that's why they kind of broke everything up and so on. So I'm assuming that what we were just told at the end for building A, in order to be able to at least get the proper funding for that and so on, they had to make concessions and so on. So I do understand that. I don't know if the reason for the extra floor is the more units makes it easier to get funding for, or, you know, I'm not going to ask them that thing, but I do still have concerns about that extra floor. The area it's in, it probably could deal with it, but I still have some concerns about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Varley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think I tend to share your perspective, Mr. Chair, in terms of, you know, the changes that we're looking at here are not, you know, of a material nature as I would look at it. I mean, I do think that there are certainly impacts, you know, associated with adding that 6th floor. But I think in terms of the sort of overall appearance and layout of the development, you know, we heard from Mr. Petropoulos that, you know, we were just discussing that the height of the building is actually going to be a little bit less. So I think from that perspective, it doesn't, you know, it doesn't to me have a huge impact in terms of like the overall, you know, appearance and feeling of the development. And also, you know, given the more flexible parking standards here, they're still within, you know, the requirement for parking. There's no waiver being requested there. And, you know, I was satisfied, you know, with the response from Mr. Petropoulos in terms of the, you know, the architectural, you know, design varying, but the, you know, strict quality and standards not. And you know, again, similarly, I think, you know, I also appreciate that, to the extent that there is, financing to support, the affordable housing building that's, in some ways dependent or contingent on, having that in one location. I think it's great to see that there's going to be an affordable housing component of this development. And also, I just note that it's, it's all in close proximity. It's part of the same general development, so it's not like we're talking about, segregating the affordable housing, at some different location. So for all those reasons, I would be supportive of this revised proposal.
Alderman Clee?
Yes, I think this question is probably for Mr. Durfee. Is this area have an inclusionary zoning requirement? And if so, does Building A meet that requirement?
The inclusionary zoning ordinance is in effect across the city. However, this project is not utilizing it, as was indicated by Mr. Petropoulos via his client. Building A is utilizing New Hampshire housing financing programs, and as such, they wouldn't be relying on the density bonuses afforded to projects utilizing inclusionary zoning. Therefore, and I will also say that the unit count in this project does far exceed the IZ standards. So IZ really isn't applicable in this situation.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's not applicable for buildings B or C?
No, and the other side of that is the IZ relies on a density maximum in order to be applied. There is no density maximum in the GI district, which is the base here. So they can't really opt into using IZ because there's no density bonus when there's no maximum.
Again, just for clarity, I think that was the question that I started asking originally, is this kind of a requirement within that area? But when you said it's the GI, I understand that now. Thank you.
Ms. Harper?
Yes, I'm sorry to harp on this, but, so if a tenant in an affordable home renews and their income has to be re-qualified, then at that point, would they have to be moved to a market rate apartment in another building, or how would that be handled?
This situation is unique, and I can't really comment on it because of the nature of the financing coming from New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority. They have their own mechanisms that we do not have any involvement with or frankly much knowledge of. They have their own standards, and they would probably strike their own agreements with either Mr. Lefevre or tenants on an individual basis, I'm not sure, which is likely very different from how we would administer our inclusionary ordinance. So I can't really speak to the details of that because of where the money is coming from, being the state program.
Okay, thank you.
Other members of the board, comments or questions for staff at this time? Okay. Seeing none, we do have two requests before us this evening. The first is approval for extension of the subdivision. Might be the easier one to take up. I don't know if we've reached a point, if we want to continue discussing, or if a member of the board may be so inclined to offer a motion with respect to that extension. Mr. Green.
I'd like to make a motion for A25-0100 to grant final subdivision approval extension as part of the motion, as part of the requirements outlined in NRO 190-138D3. And it is to incorporate the subsequent conditions as stated in the staff report, A through A.
All right, thank you. Motion by Mr. Green. Is there a second? Mr. Hudson?
I'll second that, but I have a additional request for another condition, which would be to reference the July 9th letter from Joe Mandola to have those comments be addressed to the satisfaction of the Department, or Division of Public Works.
Mr. Green, would you be willing to amend your motion to include
I would
a
like
subsequent condition B?
Yeah, I would like to amend my motion for new business A25-0100, and the subsequent conditions that were part of the previous motion, to add B, where the letter from Joe Mandola from July 9th,
Yes.
2025, to be completed to satisfaction of the Department of Public Works as part of the approval condition.
All right, thank you. Motion by Mr. Green,
I'd second that.
second by
amended
Mr.
motion.
Hudson.
Yep.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Next item, we have action regarding the site plan. But first, we should probably make a determination on the modification of the design standards. So this is, again, this is with respect to case 825-0099, site plan amendment and extension. Is any member of the board willing to offer a motion regarding granting of the modification of design standards with respect to the subject property? Mr. Varley?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So as to new business A25-0099, I would like to make a motion to grant the applicant's request for modification of the design standards, in particular, increasing the height of Building C from 5 to 6 stories, and the associated change in height. And that would be based on a finding that the applicant has established a basis for this request in their site plan suitability report, and additionally based on the testimony of the applicant here this evening. So with that in mind, that would be my motion to approve that design modification request.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Mr. Varley to grant the design modification request. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Hirsch. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Mr. Varley, would you care to continue the thought?
Sure. And Dan, do we need a similar additional subsequent condition here? Or is that letter only relating to the?
No,
The
that
subdivision.
letter related to both the subdivision and site plan, so yes, the same condition would be requested.
And,
It's in the site plan, just not in the subdivision.
Is it? Okay. In the conditions?
Yeah, it's in the conditions.
It's only the letters from June 23rd, 23, and
oh,
June
the
20th.
letter itself is there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't see it in the, maybe I'm missing it.
Yeah, for completeness, I would recommend add a subsequent, if he wishes to continue the motion, add a subsequent condition C to also address the July 9th engineering comment letter.
All comments on a letter dated June 3rd, 2025 from Joe Mandola.
July 9th, 2025 is
Yeah,
what,
that's wrong, yeah.
what we have, because that's the one we just added to the last motion.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, change the date.
Yeah, and just in Scott's defense, this letter is dated yesterday, so I understand why it wasn't referenced in the staff report.
Oh, that's okay.
I apologize for lateness of it, but
No, it's all right.
that's why it wasn't added, so I appreciate the board's accommodation in adding it.
Yeah, just got the wrong date somehow.
And just, I apologize, because I already forgot, Cameron, with the context, so are we just, to the satisfaction, is it, or before a certain, we can just say applicant shall address to the satisfaction?
It's a condition, subsequent condition prior to the signature of the final plat, so it's subsequent condition. It falls under the same.
Prior to plan signature?
Yeah,
Okay.
under the same criteria as the other, as the A and the B.
Okay, yeah, I guess that's, yeah, right. It's already, prior signature's already in the lead in. Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so with that clarification, I would like to make a motion as to do business A25-0099 for an approval of the extension of the original site plan approval, finding that it does meet the criteria in 190-146D, and that's inclusive of 3 subsequent conditions. A and B is written in the staff report, and a new C to be added to indicate that all outstanding items in the July 9th, 2025 letter from Joe Mandola are to be addressed to the satisfaction of the Department of Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Varley. Motion by Mr. Varley. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Green. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda, under new business subdivision plans, case 025-0095, property located at 22 Conant Road. Has any member of the board had an opportunity to review the application, is willing to make a motion regarding its completeness, and the board taking jurisdiction? Ms. Harper?
Yes, Mr. Chair, in regards to case A25-0095, Robert Champagne, owner, property located at 22 Conant, I think we can take jurisdiction.
All right, thank you. Motion by Ms. Harper. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Hudson. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, board has jurisdiction. Mr. Petropoulos is up again. All right.
Good evening, members of the planning board. For the record, my name is Jim Petropoulos. I'm a professional engineer at 3 Congress Street in Nashua, New Hampshire. Tonight, representing the landowner and the applicant, Bob Champagne. And it's just read into the record, the purpose of this application is just a minor lot line adjustment between 2 parcels located at 22 Conant Road and 1 Yarmouth Drive. A little bit of information. These are map C lots 177 and 2966, I believe. And it's the R9 zoning district. This property is located by Conant Road, Yarmouth, and single-family homes. And the current lots that you see on the plan were created in a 3-lot subdivision that was approved by this board in November of 2022. What's being proposed this evening is just a portion of the common lot line between 2 lots, lot 177, which is 22 Conant Road, and lot 2966, 1 Yarmouth Drive, is being relocated. The lot line relocation transfers about 800 square feet from one lot to the other. And the reason being, and Scott, if I could ask you to go to maybe the next slide. Okay. So the reason being is that the home proposed on lot 177 is slightly larger than originally contemplated in the 2022 subdivision. And so in order to fit that particular building and house style, you can see the dash line was the old lot line, and it just gets kicked over at about the midway point in order to comply to the side yard setback. No other changes to the plan, no other changes to the other lots, no changes to utility locations or driveways. The plan does carry with it the same waiver request we had in 2022, which is survey of 1,000 feet around the entire site. So it's a very, very straightforward request this evening. The plan complies with your subdivision regs. The conditions as outlined in the staff report are acceptable, and I'd be happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Questions from the board at this time? All right. Sure. All
I'll
right,
wait.
all right. All right, thank you, Jim. Just go through the motion. Is there anyone remaining in the audience tonight that wishes to speak in opposition or with concern to this project? Or anyone wishing to speak in support of this project? All right, seeing none. All right. Assuming there's no more questions of the applicant, I'm going to close the public hearing at this time. I don't really have anything to add to this one. There's a little jog in the line. Mr. Hudson, I don't know if you have any other thoughts based on what you've seen previously over the last 3 years on this, but
The subdivision modification is straightforward. There was submitted testimony relative to some activities on this property and a budding property. I would just suggest that those aren't really applicable to the case at hand. Those are more enforcement type actions that people could take up with the city or others, but I don't think they have bearing on this modification of the lot line.
I would agree, and Mr. Hudson, thank you for reading the letters. Obviously, there was a letter that we received electronically as part of our original packet, in addition to the hard copy we received today. Just to echo Mr. Hudson's point, it's not up to this body to adjudicate potentially private disputes or enforce existing city ordinance with respect to whatever you may or may not be doing on your property. So while I appreciate the testimony, the written testimony, that is, I don't think it should have any bearing on our decision this evening. So, but other than that, unless there's other discussion items from the board on this one, I think I'd be looking for a motion. First, we need to reaffirm the waiver. Obviously, it's probably the most common waiver we see. We similarly granted it previously 3 years ago. I personally wouldn't see a reason to not grant it this evening. But just as our course of business unfolds here, I would request that our first motion deal directly with the granting of the waiver with respect to existing conditions. So if any member of the board is so inclined, go right ahead. No takers?
Nope.
None. I saw Mr. Green first, but, he just
Yes.
deferred, he deferred. Ms. Harper, go right ahead.
All right. I'd like to make a motion to approve waiver A 190-282B to show all existing conditions within 1,000 feet of property lines as per RSA 674-36-2N, RSA 674-44-3E, and 190-148D. Strict conformity would pose an unnecessary hardship to the applicant, and the waiver would not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the regulations and specific circumstances or conditions of the land, and the waiver will properly carry out the spirit and intent of the regulations.
All right, thank you. Motion by Ms. Harper. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Green. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Ms. Harper, I know you have the difficult job of writing at the same time, but would you care to follow the thought through? Are you willing to make a motion with respect to final subdivision approval?
Sure.
I didn't mean to force it on you.
I can make the motion.
Oh.
You want to take a
Yes,
turn?
I'll
All right,
take the motion.
all right, Mr. Green, yes, go right ahead.
For new business A 25-0095, I'd like to make a motion to grant final subdivision approval for the lot line adjustment between 22 Conant Street and 1 Yarmouth Road, finding the applicant meets the approval criteria outlined in NRO 190-138G, subject to subsequent conditions in the staff report A through E.
All right, thank you. Motion by Mr. Green, is there a second? Second by Ms. Harper. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right. Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda, under new business site plan, case 825-0090, property located at 340 Amherst Street. Before we take any formal action on this, Mr. Hirsch, you going to recuse yourself? Certainly. For the record, Mr. Hirsch has recused. Let the record reflect, we also still have a quorum. With respect to case 825-0090, has any member of the board had an opportunity to review the application and is willing to make a determination or a motion regarding determination of completeness and as to whether or not the board should accept jurisdiction? Mr. Varley.
Yes, Mr. Chair, having reviewed the plan, I would like to make a motion that new business 825-0090 site plan is complete and ready for the board to accept jurisdiction.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Mr. Varley. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Harper. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, board has jurisdiction. Jim, this is your last one tonight, so
Sweet, sweet.
make it count.
It won't go as quick as the last one. Thank you. For the record, Jim Petropoulos, Hayner Swanson, 3 Congress Street. Tonight, representing Law Realty Company, I'd like to introduce Brian Law. Brian is the president of Law Realty Company. And also, I'd like to introduce former city planning director, Richard Kane, who's a consultant for the project. It's just read into the record, we're really seeking a site plan approval from the board this evening for property at 340 Amherst Street. I'll present the facts of the project and then happy to answer questions. This subject site is the former Leda Lanes bowling alley site. It is a 2.08 acre site located in the general business district right on Amherst Street here in Nashua. It's also located in the mixed-use overlay district. As reference, our direct abutters to the north are Amherst Street. And then we have Law family property located to the south behind us. We have the former Glow building to the east of us, which is owned by the Law family realty companies, Law Realty. And then to the west, 350 Amherst Street, which is also part of the Law Realty companies. Overall, as we know, Amherst Street is a very busy commercial retail corridor. This is a very visible site. I'm sure we've all been by it. It's a fairly flat site with a gentle grade from front to back, utilities throughout. And then way in the back, we've got Coleraine Brook, which runs in a southwest easterly direction towards Sharon Ave. What's being proposed is to demolish the existing building and construct a one-story multi-tenanted retail building that will measure about 11,300 square feet in size. The new building, this is a speculative project. The new building is envisioned to contain a drive-through restaurant with seasonal outdoor seating and up to 5 tenant spaces for uses that are allowed in the GB zoning district. In case you're wondering, the Leda Lanes building measures almost 30,000 square feet, so this is roughly a third of the size in terms of building area. Now, this is really the third project that we presented in the last 2 years for Law Realty Company. We recently completed the development just west of us, 350 Amherst Street, and to include a very similar type project. And then we recently permitted before this board the former Global building into a medical use. So this really completes the frontage, the Amherst Street frontage by Law Realty Co. Of course, they own significant land behind there as well. The site improvements for the project, access is fairly unique. We'll be accessing through a curb cut from the Global building and a curb cut just located on 350 Amherst Street. So we have no direct new curb cut onto Amherst Street for this lot. And that's a significant improvement over the current condition. All these sites had these big wide open curb cuts on Amherst Street, and so as the redevelopment has occurred, we think we need an attaboy for better access management along Amherst Street. interconnectivity between these sites is important. We learned that from the mall and from Home Depot back in the early 80s, that, you know, keeping people internal rather than putting them out onto Amherst Street with the jug handles if they want to go west. Uses within this project and the global site can move through the parking lot, get to Airport Road, and then get to the signal to go west. So really good planning on the part of the ownership team there. And of course it works because our client owns all the 3 properties. Parking in front of the building, 31 spaces. Similar to 350 Amherst Street, we have parking behind. The code requires 68 spaces for our plan. We're providing 76, and that's 68 minimum, maximum 98. I'm going to talk about parking in a little bit. Open space, much more open space than currently exists. 10% is required in the zone, 26% exists, we're proposing 42. And that's largely in the back of the site where there's a lot of paved area that runs very close to Coleraine Brook. And to Brian's credit, a lot of that pavement is getting pulled up and providing really kind of a better buffer to Coleraine Brook. There'll be a new pylon sign along Amherst Street. We've got new landscaping really along our sidelines, primarily between us and our abutters on each side. Lighting, there'll be new lighting throughout the site, consistent, same type of lighting on all 3 projects. Stormwater, similar to the other 2 projects. Your National Land Use Code 191.15 says for a redevelopment site, we have to improve drainage to the maximum extent possible. Currently, the Leda Lane site drains all its runoff into Coleraine Brook, really unattended. You know, we've got some unsuitable soils on site. We've got some high groundwater. What we're proposing to do is to capture runoff, run it through a mechanical device, a treatment device, to provide qualitative treatment where there currently is none. And because we've got much more open space, the overall impact is really beneficial with less runoff heading to Coleraine Brook. We did submit a traffic report worksheet. We are adding trips to the AM peak. You know, we've identified a use as a drive-through use. Hopefully it's a coffee user over on the east side of that site, and so we've got probably a greater AM peak impact than the bowling alley, which I don't even think opened until maybe 9 or 10 o'clock. And then we've got a slight increase in PM peak. This has been reviewed by the city traffic consultant, and he's come back and consistently, as we know with developments on Amherst Street, he's got an equation for contributions for traffic mitigation fund, and that amount is $26,500, which is agreeable to our client. I'll talk briefly about the architecture. Sam, if you're scrolling, maybe we can look at the building elevations. Okay. You know, simply stated, it would really match the features of 350 Amherst Street. Flat roof, buildings 18 to 22 feet in height, fixed glass windows at our storefronts. We've got some canopied entries on kind of the end cap tenants. A brick base, which is nice. The HVAC units will be rooftop units. And as I said, again, very similar architecture to 350 Amherst Street. Our proposal includes 3 waivers. Our favorite, the survey within 1,000 feet of the site, which I can't wait till the new code gets rid of that one. Sam, I hope you're hearing me there. We have a lighting waiver for increased foot candle levels across our sidelines, sidelines, but because we own both sites, that spillover is basically encouraged. I mentioned our site plan. We've got our curb cuts off our property, and so the lighting is really going to, these 3 sites are really going to work together in terms of the lighting. We're not spilling over to any other abutters, it's just all internal. And then the other waiver is rather unique, and I want to spend a minute on it. Because our project's speculative in nature, the individual tenants really aren't known at this time. It's difficult to accurately identify the number of required parking spaces. And as you know, different uses carry different criteria. A retail yarn shop is different than a drive-through coffee restaurant. And so we as developers and developers representatives, we like flexibility. Our plan identified 5 tenants plus a drive-through restaurant. As I mentioned, the minimum required is 68. We're providing 76. The maximum allowed is 98. But the concern is that if and when a tenant ever changes, do we have to come back to the planning board for every tenant change? That seems a little much. And in talking about it with Sam, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, but it looks like we've collectively kind of agreed upon this, to ask the planning board to give staff the ability for tenant use changes, to make those changes administratively, whereas our counts, whereas I said, our counts add up to 76 spaces, he'd allow us to go up to 90 spaces without having to appear before the board. And I'll cite an example, that lovely plaza I designed in 1984 on Daniel Webster Highway with La Coretta Restaurant, very successful restaurant. So successful it dominates that whole field. And so you can't predict that in a speculative development. And so what this waiver does, it gives staff ability to work with us in a very minor way to amend some of these tenants so that we could take that calculated parking requirement of 76 spaces and ramp it up to 90 spaces. And we would seek your approval of that. With that, everything else complies. The hope is to continue with construction. The Leda Lanes building will be coming down shortly. This project is expected to start in the fall of '25. It's about an 8 to 10 month project to complete. Before I wrap up, we are in the mixed-use overlay district. And Sam, if you don't mind, if you could go to the site plan. There's kind of one quirk. In the National Land Use Code right now, there's a setback distance for a pedestrian crosswalk to a pickup window of a drive-through. Where's that yellow box? There we go. And you'll notice from the back parking lot over on the left side, we've got our crosswalk. The code says you need 160 feet from the drive-up window, which we have. We comply with that. But there's this little sentence in that section of the code that speaks to the order station. Now, the order station is about midway on that building. And we don't have 160 feet, we have 94 feet. So Sam wanted me to bring that to your attention this evening. Because we're in the mixed-use overlay, it gives this board authority on dimensional criteria. It's not a zoning relief we would need. It's basically bringing it forward to the planning board. You can see the crosswalk is at the furthest point to the west. And we think it's a very reasonable design. In fact, we had an earlier crosswalk over near the other corner of that building, and we thought it was a good idea not to cross if cars are stacking at that window. But 160 feet back is a good 8 or 9 cars, and so we think that's reasonable. Anyway, with that, everything else conforms, and the conditions that are outlined in the staff report are good and acceptable to our client, and be happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Harper, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. On the lines of pedestrians, unfortunately, fortunately, the new building next door is super successful, and the parking lot is full all the time. Congratulations. But I'm also thinking that people may spill over into that front parking lot and be crossing over to the other building. I was just curious if there was any thought to putting some type of striping or crosswalk from there to there, sidewalk.
Yeah, with speculative development, it's kind of, build it and let's see how it works and see what we like and what we don't like. And yes, we know 350's been successful. We're concerned about parking. We've got a successful restaurant, and now we've got a smaller other successful restaurant. We have options because of the the property behind being all law family property, we know that we always have a backup solution that if we do need parking, we don't ever want to lose tenants at our front door, so we can always provide additional parking. Now, having said that, because the laws own all 3 lots, they can't grant themselves easements, but there is a declaration of covenants that has been submitted to staff that basically says if they ever sell one or any of these lots, that they have cross-access and parking easements. We know the Global building is underparked. There's like 60 spaces there and they only need 35. So we've got surplus over there. To answer your question, do we want to make a paved connection to the abutter next door? It's a good idea. We can look at that. We haven't actually connected sidewalk to sidewalk, but we could certainly work with staff and look at that.
Yeah, if you could just look at it and perhaps consider it, just,
Yeah.
People want to be as close as possible to the front door.
Sure.
And, like I said, I could picture people, filling up portions of that lot in order to get to
Yeah.
the other successful restaurant on the other side.
The other thing that they're trying to do, and actually, Dick has got great experience, is trying to balance the non-coincidental peaks. And to have coffee is maybe a morning peak user. To have a sit-down restaurant is a nighttime user. So having that balance is something that they wanted to really focus in on here with the tenant fit up here.
No, I appreciate that. And what's been built already is beautiful, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Clee, please.
Thank you. Just more or less, just 2 items. The first one is the drive-through. I always have concerns with drive-throughs on Amherst Street, queuing
Yeah.
and so on. So how would this queuing work so that it's not going to spill onto Amherst Street?
Yeah.
And my nightmare is Dunkin' Donuts
Yeah.
down the road, so.
So we, and I agree with you, and of course, the classic example is a coffee shop further down the road,
Yeah.
heading towards the highway where there's some backup historically.
Oh, it's bad, yeah.
Yeah. We're extremely fortunate here to have that type of length. We are 160 plus another 80 plus another 70 to Amherst Street. If somebody comes in off of Amherst Street, Sam, if you could point that cursor up to that curb cut there, from that distance as they come in, they make a left and they get in the queuing lane, they've got some 250 feet. And, that's, 160, 240 feet. It's a good dozen to 13 cars plus. And if they can't give you coffee and a donut in 13 stacks, then something's wrong. But then there's still some room before you get to Amherst Street. So it's my opinion, having done a number of these sites over the years, that this is a very good setup. And of course, we've got the bypass lane as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you-
Certainly. Yep.
Thank you for that answer. I mean, I was looking at it and thinking the same thing, and I know there's a similar coffee shop down the road that seems to be successful, so, that did the queuing right. So I do appreciate the comments on that. My other comment was, you're requesting that staff have authority to look at tenant change. And that might be for Mr. Durfee. Is that only because of parking, or are we talking about the use of that building? Because then sometimes I have some concerns that something else is going to go in there and we're going to, similar to other things that have come through. So,
Sure. So 2 parts to this. Tenants themselves and the usage. We already have a level of administrative authority
Right.
For allowing and accommodating changes in use for permitted uses. Strictly permitted,
Right.
no conditional use permit or no zoning variance needed to change to a different use. We do that regularly. The request before you in the waiver form relative to parking is unique. As I discussed with Mr. Petropoulos regarding the speculative nature of the development, and our current parking code does have different requirements for different types of uses, they're providing 75, 76 spaces in the design. Now, if other tenants came in and wanted or were required to provide more parking based on the code, we've crafted this waiver request where the board would be granting flexibility up to 90 spaces. So say a couple tenants come in and that combination results in a need for 86 spaces. You have already granted the flexibility to allow that without having to come back to the board. Now, if the combination of uses resulted in requirement of 93 spaces, that exceeds the flexibility that you'd be granting with this waiver. So we're basically giving just a little bit of buffer room to allow for a different combination of uses so that we don't have to come back even for 16 or 17 additional spaces above. So we're seeking relief for 15 speculative spaces, if you will take that.
Yeah.
Follow-up, and then I know Mr. Hudson wants to chime in as well, so.
Was it relative to that? Did you
It
want to?
is.
Please, I defer to Mr. Hudson, please.
Thank you. So I'm just confused. If the maximum allowed is 98, why do they have to keep coming back to get approval for anything less than 98?
You should press the refresh button on the report.
Oh, okay.
The report you're looking at is a previous version. We reworded it. There is a maximum of 98. We're asking for relief from 75 to 90. We're not asking for relief to exceed the maximum that is 98.
No, I know, but why, if we approve 76, which is less than a maximum of 98, and they go to, and something comes forward, they want to do 90, why can't that change happen without it coming back to the planning board?
The needle that we are moving is the minimum. There's a minimum requirement for parking based on usage. Right now, we are providing 75, 76. We're requesting that that minimum be bumped up to 90.
So it's a minimum, not a max.
We have both in the code.
The minimum goes from 68 to 90. I struggled with how to present this without getting it balled up, but thank you, Sam. I do need to be clear about one thing. On the tenant, you know, if we have a yarn shop that leaves and a shoe shop comes in, we're not back before the board. As a shoe shop's allowed, we're permitting these tenants for all uses allowed in the GB zone. But the linchpin is this parking. And you might say, well, what's that all about? Well, I'll give you an extreme example. Well, let's say Legal Seafoods wants to come into the building, an extremely successful, high-intensity use. There just isn't enough parking there. Now, Brian could make the deal, and if they sign the lease, that's great, but the city would be at peril. Then you'd really have a parking problem. So it gives the city a certain amount of control. I think it's a fair thing to move that minimum up to 90. It helps the tenants, so he's not coming 5 years from now every time back before the board to put a tenant in there. As I said, it's a unique request. I haven't seen it before, but I kind of like it, so.
Alderman Clee.
Thank you. I actually have no problem with it. I just have another question for Mr. Durfee. And I think it makes things easier and makes things go smoother too. So I have no problem with it, but perhaps I'm not thinking this right. But isn't there a requirement when there's a certain amount of parking spaces, there has to be buffers and so on? Would you, granting this, do they have to redesign the parking lot at all, or?
No, because the alignment, the layout complies with the site development standards. If they had to provide above the 90 that we're relieving, we would have to do a redesign potentially, or they don't sign that deal because of the onerous process that it would result in terms of site design, construction, and further approvals.
Okay, so 90 would trigger a redesign of some sort?
91.
91 would trigger the redesign, so therefore it would come back to the board with a whole new plan.
Yes.
I actually don't have a problem with it, I'm just, thank you.
This is, this might be a toss-up between Jim and Dan, but there's a comment in the review letter from engineering about conducting a queuing analysis.
That was my question.
That's not the confirmed use. I understand it's laid out for that, but is the city going to hold to that? Because we've heard testimony that you can hold close to a dozen vehicles, and quickly scaling it off myself, it seems like that would be a sufficient number. I live by the Aroma Joe's down the road, which has seemingly far less than that, and I haven't noticed an issue there. I mean, obviously, we've all seen those older, it's always a Dunkin' Donuts. It's a Dunkin' Donuts that was built in the 70s or 80s, and they were built on postage stamp size lots. I envision it being less of an issue here. I just didn't know what the mechanism was. Are you asking, are they being asked to do that before a tenant is known potentially, or is that like something where if it does end up being a drive-through, that you'd like to see some documentation that substantiates, and I guess my follow-up to that would be, is there anything in Nashua code that explicitly states quick service restaurant, irrespective of brand, has to have stacking for X amount of vehicles, either from the order board or from the pickup window?
Yeah, 19042 speaks to that. It gives distances from number of windows and things, so. I think the comment, the way I read Mr. Mendola's comments is, we've submitted a TIR. It's a pretty basic traffic formula, as you know, Mr. Chair. I think he was just looking for some backup support on queuing, and we're happy to provide that.
Okay.
Yeah, frankly, Mr. Chair, I want a professional engineer, traffic engineer, to provide us comfort via some mechanism that there's sufficient queuing space so that should the unforeseen case come forward that there isn't,
Okay.
we can point to that in seeking some mitigation measure of some sort
Okay.
to address that. We've had other sites where we didn't, and not coffee uses, even a different type of use, where the queuing was significantly outpaced what the site provided. I do agree that it appears this configuration is suitable, but I would like something on record in addition to Mr. Petropoulos' testimony, that there's sufficient queuing for the coffee use.
Okay, and I certainly
It
wasn't
could be
trying.
it could be a letter. I'm open to whatever mechanism makes sense, but that's really what we're seeking, is just a certification to that fact that there's going to be sufficient queuing space.
Okay, and I wasn't trying to controvert any recommendation of engineering. It just seems as a speculative building, if it ends up not being a drive-through, anyway,
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to muddy the water there. It was just more of a curiosity question, so.
Yeah, I mean, and I will give them kudos for the access control. I really do appreciate that part of the plan.
Thank you.
But no, there's a similar case on 495 of Amherst, I think it was, where it was a different use proposed initially, then it got switched to coffee use.
Yeah.
Then we made them submit all this additional information and queuing them.
Gotcha.
If this reverts to something different, that's something that we could withdraw, whatever, we'll figure it out, but.
Okay.
But if it has a coffee use, which is probably the worst case scenario, obviously, queuing, I just want something on record from a professional in that field that we can rely on as a comfort measure.
Okay. Understood perfectly. Thank you for the clarification.
I'm sure drive-through casinos are in the future, so.
Could be drive-through liquor sales, who knows? Who knows what's out
We
there?
used to have them on the highway, remember?
Other questions for Mr. Petropoulos? All right, seeing none at this time. Gentlemen, you're all part of the team this evening, so, all right. One last chance? Everybody good?
Yeah.
All right, I'll close the public hearing at this time. There's some interesting little side stuff going along with this one. I don't think any of it is insurmountable, so I didn't mean to imply that, but you've got a few waivers. You've got a couple of, you've got a design mod element to this. It seemed, overall, obviously, this is not the first time we've seen an application for this specific group of landowners. I think they've tried to be responsive, tried to be attentive to what they're doing, and I think we've all probably frequented this area of town. I think ultimately what's going to come out of this, it's going to look better than what's there now. So I'm comfortable with what's proposed. But obviously, I'd love to hear what the rest of the board thinks. If you've got any other thoughts on the matter. Alderman Clee, please.
Yeah, no, I have no problem. I like the idea of doing some type of queuing study. I know the one that was just referenced, I was on the board when we were talking about that. I made a lot of noise about the queuing because of my concern of the one that's up the street from there. And I don't want to see that happen again on Amherst Street. It creates havoc. That one in particular is probably because of the big trucks that this may or may not have that same kind of issue. But just as a question, when they do a queuing study, Mr. Hudson, would that include the type of vehicles that might be there, or would it just be the number of vehicles?
Yeah, I think the traffic engineer would characterize what the typical usage is for that, type of use, typical makeup of vehicles that use that site, probably primarily passenger cars. And then would apply that, spacing, length of vehicle spacing to come up with their estimated, 95th, 100%, whatever queue length. So yeah, just, there's other sites that could be counted, similar uses along the corridor as noted, as examples. There's a bunch of ways it could be done, but we would like some kind of analysis provided if the coffee use is to remain.
And if I may just.
Certainly,
yeah.
please.
The one thing I really do like about this project is something that we've spoken about for the master plan and so on, and that's to get the traffic off of Amherst Street, so allowing traffic to sidestep it by going through parking lots, so to speak. That is exactly the idea of what we've been looking for to help alleviate some of the traffic, so I applaud that allowance of travel through all of the sites. I think that makes things a lot easier. It brings it out to the street. It will help Amherst Street. So I'm not a traffic person, but I think that does help mitigate some of that kind of traffic. So I do applaud that. And I don't see any problems, other than I did have a question about the subsequent condition B, 6.2, when it talks about B, continue to work with the local and state staff to complete the required mitigation for the demolition of the existing National Register eligible building on site. Is that the Leda Lanes?
That shouldn't be that.
Am I looking at the wrong one?
The wrong report.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay, I apologize for that.
I believe that's for 103 Temple.
that's 103.
That's 103 Temple, okay, yeah. Sorry, it came up on my screen. I was like, I don't remember seeing this before. That's why it
Yeah,
just
no.
hit my head. It was like,
No.
For some
that's
people,
new.
Leda Lanes may be considered historic.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when did, I lived across the street at Canongate for a long time, looking over at Leda Lane. I don't see that as a historic building. I'm like, why is this eligible? But thank you so much. I think it's a great project.
All right. Other comments from the board? Questions for staff? Are we okay on the parking? Just
I
everybody.
don't fully understand it, but if the applicant and the staff do, then that's good enough for me.
Yeah, I did see, because I was looking at the old language too, in the
Yeah.
report, which I was like, I don't know what's, but now I see the revised language. And I'm with you, Dan. I think everybody seems to be comfortable that they
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
how it's gonna work, so.
All righty. Well, if nobody has anything further, what we should do first, if it's the pleasure of the board, consideration of the waivers. If any board member is willing to make a motion with respect to the 3 waivers that are sought at this time, willing to entertain a motion for that. Mr. Green, go right ahead.
I'd like to make a motion for new business A25-0090. The first motion will be for the 3 waiver requests provided by the waiver request letter dated June 12th, 2025, and the attached supplemental materials. And we'd like to grant it based on its compliance with based on the applicant's site suitability report and in compliance with 190-23D through F, to first waive the requirements to show conditions on the adjacent parcels. The second, 190-198, to grant parking relief for 15 spaces beyond the 75 provided. And the third, 190-89A, to waive the requirements not to exceed 0.2-foot candles along the property lines and shared driveways, showing that that strict conformity would pose unnecessary hardship to the applicant and would not be in contrary to the spirit and intent of the regulations for the first motion.
All right, thank you. Motion by Mr. Green. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Barley. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Mr. Green, I'll leave it up to you. If you, would you like to, I don't want to take it away, that is. Would you care to continue the thought on dimensional standards, or?
Yeah, I'll give that one a try.
All right.
As well. So the second motion, I'd like to make a motion to grant modifications to dimensional standards, allowing a portion of the dumpster in the required 6-foot side yard access structure setback and the crosswalk in the bypass stacking drive-through lanes, using the rationale again provided in the applicant's site plan suitability report dated June 12th, 2025, finding that the application and the associated report address the relevant factors and meet the guidelines for site plan evaluation under 190-23E and F.
All right, thank you. Motion by Mr. Green with respect to granting the modification of dimensional standards. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Harper. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Lastly, motion for granting final site plan approval.
Before I make that final
Would-
one, I think everything was updated from the new letter.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the engineering's covered.
I would like to make a motion to grant final site plan approval for the development, the one-story development on 340 Amherst Street, finding that it meets the approval criteria outlined in site plan NRO 190-146D, subject to the following, to the subsequent conditions in the staff report A through K.
All right, thank you. Motion by Mr. Green for granting final site plan approval. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Harper. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
All righty, moving along. Other business. Review of tentative agenda to determine developments of regional impact. Has any member of the board had an opportunity to review the list? Is willing to make a motion with respect to projects of regional impact? Mr. Hudson?
Mr. Chair, I have.
Oh, you know, I apologize.
Oh,
Before
yeah.
your motion, Mr. Hirsch, I was too quick on the draw. I'm sorry, Larry.
You can't move that fast.
Mr. Hirsch has rejoined from his recusal.
Right.
All right, full board. Thank you. Mr. Hudson, please.
I have reviewed the tentative agenda, Mr. Chair, and I make a motion that the board find no projects of regional significance.
All right, thank you. Motion by Mr. Hudson. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Green. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda, other business number 2, Board of Aldermen referral, 025-055. Would staff or any member of the audience care to speak?
Okay.
Certainly, no.
Okay, yeah.
I'm sure you know the drill. Just introduce yourself, go right ahead. So,
Certainly. Thank you, members of the board. My name is Tim Sennett. I'm the alderman for Ward 7. This ordinance was proposed by me in conjunction with the planning team and staff. What we have here is a change to the land use code. And my objective here, many of you remember over the past couple of years, proposals in the Temple Street area for an asphalt plant that was ultimately rejected by this board and then went through a number of litigious procedures before being dropped by the applicant. What this aims to do is to take some of the contemplations that were made during that discussion in regard to the neighborhood in its current state as a general industrial zone that is overlain by a transit-oriented development, and bring it into closer harmony with the ideals of the master plan and the vision for that general neighborhood as we go forward in the city. The long and short of what this does is it contemplates heavy chemical manufacturing. This would include, as well as asphalt, tanneries, I believe paint manufacturing, Sam, if you can correct me, was one of them. Anything that would be a heavy chemical industrial use. And it would, in any GI zone that is overlain by a TOD, those uses would be forbidden by use. What was important to me as we crafted this was to ensure that the current uses, as it would apply to the businesses that are already there, they would not be exempt by default. I wanted to make sure that nobody's business that was operating there currently in its current state was affected by new land use regulation. And so the idea is to just take some of the arguments that were made over the past couple of years in relation to the master plan and the vision for that neighborhood and bring our land use code into harmony with that. And that's really all I've got for you here. If the staff is interested in giving you more of the mechanicals, that's more their bread and butter than mine.
Alderman, I appreciate the overview. Thank you. Questions from the board at this time, either for the alderman or for staff? All right.
Terrific.
Seeing none, thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your testimony. All right. Last chance for Sam? No. All right. Well, that being the case, I think we'd be looking for, Sam, a favorable or unfavorable recommendation are our two choices. I would personally be in favor of this. I think hopefully it cleans up some ambiguities, legacy ambiguities. But that's my thought. But if any other member of the board has thoughts or is willing to make a motion, then go right ahead.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
No, please.
I don't have any thoughts. I was going to make a motion.
Oh.
I don't know if you have thoughts.
Just,
Alderman,
I just have.
you're allowed
I
to
always
have
have
you're
thoughts.
allowed to have thoughts and make a motion. Like
I was going to say, you
just-
can do both. No, I do have thoughts, and I want to commend my colleague for having worked so close with staff to come up with this so that we don't go through that same litigious issues that we went through before. And much to what you just said, it cleans up any kind of legacy thing that was hanging around, and it speaks to the fact that there are businesses that are there, but there are also residents that are there, and let's try to figure out how we can make them work in harmony without someone coming and saying, I have the right to do this. And I appreciate him working hard on this, especially with all the work that the staff has done. That is extraordinary, so thank you.
All right. Thank you, Alderman Clee. Any other thoughts? Ms. Harper, if you're still so inclined, go right ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion to make a favorable referral regarding, is it O-25-055.
All right, thank you. Motion by Ms. Harper, grant a favorable recommendation. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Hirsch. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right. I think before we take up our last other business item, Mr. Varley, you're going to recuse yourself?
That's correct,
Okay.
yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda, another referral from the Board of Aldermen R-25-0166. Another referral dealing with the old Mohawk Tannery site. Sam, I assume this is similar to others that we've seen along this line, where this is just sort of an instrument to kind of promulgate what's already been approved, but I'd be happy to hear any other thoughts you may have on it.
Well, I'm actually going to pull the rug out from under you on this. This was already taken up for a second reading at the Board of Aldermen on Tuesday, so no further action is needed from this board.
We already approved it.
Okay, that's what was confused.
That's what I'd said, yeah.
All right, well, now that we've cleared the air on that, Adam, I'm sorry, you accused yourself for nothing.
Come on back.
You want to come back for the motion to dismiss or adjourn? All right, anyone have anything? Sam, Scott, any board members before we call it an evening?
Next meeting, August 7th, 2020.
August 7th? All righty, there you have
Can we,
it.
how many cases we currently have on that meeting? Is it just the one? Or?
I believe it is just the one.
So far, unless something else.
Don't get any ideas. Not showing up.
I can have hope. I can have hope.
Well, speaking of which, I do know I will not be here for that meeting, so I'll just give you the heads up now.
Summer quorums can be difficult, understood. Obviously, we'll see what unfolds in the next few weeks, but
We may get a very important deadline-oriented aldermanic referral, so you never know.
yeah, cancel your Thursday plans. So, but no.
I will not be here either, actually.
Okay.
Quorum is something.
Yeah.
I will be back in time.
All right. Well, thank you all for the advance warning. But is anyone willing to make a motion? Ms. Harper? Go.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
All righty. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. We are adjourned at 8:51.